Well, hello. It's, I think, good evening for me, good afternoon for some of you, and welcome to the first Queens and Goddesses live Zoom call. Welcome everyone who is here, and welcome everybody who is late or on the replay. And I love that you are here. And let me give you a short recap on how this group came together. So we're talking about Saloma and Deanna and I, we were part of this community called Our Nation. And when we were on there, I was talking to Danielle Love, who started Our Nation, and we were talking about how I already had this little group together, this group of women, and not because we didn't want men there, but there were just women. And we've just been connecting, and we've been sharing information, and we've just been supporting each other, and playing with things that we wanted to play with, doing sessions together, and just talking as well, just seeing what we wanted to create. Created a group that's called Conscious Leadership, and we had all this information about building the arc. And so Danielle said, I would love it if you would build something for, the Queens and Goddesses in this group, and just see, whatever you want to set up, it's beautiful for me. And I was like, well, that's cool, but what would that look like? I had no idea what that would look like. So I left it for a couple of weeks. I went to Spain and did all these stuff. And then I had another conversation with somebody, and suddenly it just came to me, and it seemed so easy. Just like, I was wondering, how come I didn't see this? It's so easy to sort of set up this group and just invite those people, and let's do this and let's get together. So I made a suggestion, and I suggested it to Deanna and to Danielle, like, this is what I have in mind. So we just go ahead and set it up. And so we did. And so we created the Divine Queens and Goddesses group with the idea that we're just going to be there to support. And it's not to exclude the masculine energies, of course not, because they are included. We might even have one of the guys maybe joining this evening for part of this session. But the idea is that let us allow ourselves to claim our true Queens and Goddesses energy, to just step into that and to support each other, to grow into that, to be that, to lean into that. And it would just feel like this beautiful space to do it with, the females. And again, it's not to exclude the males, because we will probably have some other sessions with them, or we'll just have a large group meeting where, we all get together. But I just wanted to start this small and easy, and just have a conversation, and for people to just show up and share whatever, and then we'll see what it grows into. So there are a few things that we talked about, and what we wanted to discuss in this first meeting. So basically, I have something to share. Deanna has something to share, and the rest of the meeting will also be for you. So if there's anything that is up in your world, or anything that you want to share, just share it, so we can just talk about it here. We'll take about an hour to just have this conversation, and we actually want to keep it within the hour to make sure that also people watching the recording, it's going to be something that would be nice to watch. Otherwise, people will not watch the replay. So the first thing that I wanted to share here is something that maybe some of you have already seen. This last week, I did a Facebook Live in, I think, did I do it in the Conscious Leadership group? I think I did. And in that Facebook Live, I was sharing a message that came through where they said, there are two things that are basically what's being asked of us. And the first thing is to unconditionally love. And the second one is just shine our light. And even though there are many things that we can do to, feel better, release trauma, raise your frequency, whatever it is that we're doing, and it's all true, and it's all something that, could also work, and it had also been working for me. But basically what they were saying was just love unconditionally. That's all we ask from you. And just shine your light. Because the main thing, like the primary goal of the devil when we come to this planet, is to just dim our light. That's one thing that they just want to do to us, just dim our light. And it works because it helps through upset, through anger, through blame, shame, hate, doubt, all those things. And that's what keeps people in a lower frequency. And our highest frequency is the love frequency. And in our highest frequency is where we have our brightest light. So it totally made sense. And then I think it was a few days later when I was asking for more clarity. And then I heard this message saying, oh, you got to listen to your own advice. You also have to love unconditionally and just shine your light. And actually don't work too hard. You work too hard. Don't keep trying. Just love and just shine your light, and we'll take care of the rest. And I really wanted to share that here because that's a message for all of us. And what if it really were that simple? And I would love to, hear your response on this, of course. And for now, Deanna, because you had something that was coming through for you, do you want to go ahead and share that with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a beautiful introduction. That was amazing. So I am Deanna, for those that may be new and have never seen my face. So recently, I feel like I've kind of been in the background and holding space for what's been going on. So I haven't really been engaging as much as what I was in the past, but still very present. So I got two different verses from the Bible on what you were sharing. I may just share that really quickly, if that's okay. The first one was perfect love casts out fear. It's just very short. I think there's maybe a little bit more to that, but perfect love casts out all fear. And that kind of also ties in, I feel like, with the one word that I was given for this particular Zoom call. And then the other one was, you were saying, is it really that easy? And the verse for that came to me was, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. And that was one of the verses that was given to me years ago. And, I think, especially in my culture and in religion a lot, I believe, the mainstream religion, I feel like there's so many things that are maybe a little bit by force or by might instead of learning by the spirit. That's just something from personal experience and observation that I feel like I have been seeing, and just really learning how to get into that space to fully and completely live by the spirit every moment of the day. And that has been quite a challenge for me. And also not living from the space of fear, everything, not everything, but so many things that we live from are from fear. And I think we don't even realize that it is from fear instead of from love. And so some of this is like a new space that I've been learning how to navigate. And it's like every time I have this new revelation or an added revelation, It's like everything that I thought I knew before, I'm just like, I get to this point where I'm like, I really didn't know anything. You know what I mean? Like, I really knew nothing, so what do I really know? And
Right.
so, um, and I laugh all the time. I say I'm like a recovering perfectionist. And um, I don't know where this is coming from. I'm just talking like, then this will all kind of tie in with the word that I got, I think. But one day as I was driving, I heard in my spirit, just plain as if someone was talking to me, that your strongest strength is also your weakest weakness. And that may sound kind of like strange to say that, but I knew exactly what that meant. And for me, like from the culture that I was from and the way that I was kind of trained or programmed, there was a lot of perfectionism, and I thought the whole world lived like that. And so when I had to learn how to live outside of that, I didn't know how that worked. And so I think I like drove a wedge in a lot of my relationships, trying to keep up with that perfectionism. But that gets into like control and so many things, trying to live for excellence, I believe, is different from perfectionism. And where am I going with that? I really don't know, other than the one word that I got for this particular Zoom was just the word performance, or perform. I just heard the word perform, and in my being, I kind of understood what that meant. And it was kind of the way that I understood it was like, finally getting to a space where I don't feel like I really need to perform for any one person. Being completely and fully free from fear of what, the judgments, the opinions, or anything from any man, just fully living from who I be and who I was created to be, and flowing freely in love from the Spirit every single moment of the day. And that's quite a challenge sometimes. I feel like I'm just being stretched and stretched and stretched, and so that's kind of the space that I am learning how to navigate more fully. And it's just been quite an interesting experience. I was sharing also earlier that with the things that I've been going through the last several weeks, it's like I'm having to operate from so much faith. It's like when Peter saw Jesus walking towards him on the water, and Peter wanted to also walk on the water. And it's like I'm having to step my feet outside of the boat and just hoping that I'm not going to sink, and able to walk on the water as I start walking. Like that's really the level of faith that I feel that I am having to walk with. And it's not always easy, but every time that I have the faith and I take that step, it builds what I call a testimony. Like you build your testimony, and it's like you're reminded all the time, well, remember the last time you made it. Remember the last time God was faithful. Remember, and it's like this remembrance of every time God was faithful. And so it's becoming easier. And yeah, it's just been quite a journey. And I'm really excited for, this Zoom and all the wonderful women that we're going to meet, the goddesses and the queens, and seeing what everyone's creating in their space and the contribution that it will be for everyone. And, actually creating a space where we don't really feel like we have to compete,
Absolutely.
we feel
Yeah.
like we don't have to have that competition of one another, because we fully know individually, or are stepping into that space of, this is what I was created to be in the earth, what was put into my DNA, stepping into our original intent, right? And so there's I don't feel that from the women the queens and goddesses that I've been meeting through this. It's like everyone just kind of wants to step into what they're created to become, and there's like not that frequency of competition, I guess, and I love that.
Yeah,
I really
and maybe Deanna, it's nice to share for those that don't know the way that we started to interact when we got to know each other, where Deanna has this more religious background and I don't. I mean, I know some little bit about religion, but I wasn't really raised religious. And the way that we were complementing each other was, things that I would know or that I had learned, and then I would sort of, well, maybe check isn't the right word, but check with you, and you would have some quote or story from the Bible, and it would just fit together. And the other way around as well, there were things that you'd learn, and it's like, well, what is this? And then with this other perspective where I was coming from, and it just grew together. And the same now, I'm just telling a story. And while I'm telling my story, Deanna is like, well, there's this passage from the Bible, and this is coming up, and I really love that. And it's a way of complementing each other, but it's also showing this beautiful space of allowance. Like there's no right or wrong. There's no religion is bad or religion is good, or if there's a right way or a wrong way or whatever. Like they're just ways.
It was, for those that don't know or haven't watched our lives, from the past, kind of the funny story is I was asked by the Spirit, I guess I can say, to quit my job over COVID. And that was really a stretch for me. And so I went through this couple months of like learning how to live by faith for provision, literally like the children of Israel going through the desert, like day to day, the manna was provided. That was pretty much the extent of where I was living my life for several months. And one day I was either bored or desperate. I don't know which one, but I saw this post on Facebook, we are hiring, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I think I sent a message or whatever. I don't even know how she got on my Facebook page. I don't know how any of that happened. And so I replied to the we are hiring ad or whatever. And I guess she responded back, and I don't really know how all the dynamics were for that, but I was laughing to my friend afterwards. I was like, I think I just got hired for something, but I really don't have a clue what we're going to be doing. And you had a Zoom call, I think, that everyone was supposed to get on, and I was out mowing grass, and my hair was just absolutely a mess. And I was like 30 minutes late to the Zoom call. And I mean, I was just sitting there and I was like, well, I guess I can jump on, right? And so I was like, I don't need to do anything because I'm not really going to put my camera on. Well, I think it was sweet Ruby. She's like, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I turned my camera on, and I was just, breathless, and I don't know. It was interesting. I'll just say that. But somehow we started engaging in conversation, and I ended up telling her then that I didn't think that was for me, but I was like, perhaps something else, we can create something else together. And so we just started having conversation and you created Conscious Leadership Group, and we started going live and just having conversations. And that's kind of where it led up to what it is now. And we discovered that she was having these spiritual encounters, and I would say, well, this is in the Bible, right? And so I would kind of bring that into the picture.
I was like, really? Is that? Is it?
But some of our spiritual encounters were like very similar, right? And some of the things that Ruby was asking me to step into by faith, some of my religious programming kind of was like, well, I'm not really sure about that. I'm not really sure, but there was something that kept pulling me. And so I was just like, over and over, I was just like, well, what could have hurt? what could it really hurt? Let's see what it will create. And I just kept by faith going down that path. And it was kind of like our lives started to go in a parallel, like we would be going through very similar patterns at the same time, but with different life scenarios, I guess you could say. And so it was like we were growing together in very similar things, but me coming out of religion, kind of, I was on this side of the spectrum and she was on the complete opposite spectrum. And we would just have conversations, and people loved it. You know, it was like just having conversation and not judging one another. And not saying, I wouldn't say we ever got into a debate about anything like, well, I think it's this way, or I think that's wrong. Or, you know, it's like we kind of just shared from within ourselves. And it's just been beautiful the way that all that flowed together. I think I was going to make a point with that. What was it? This happens sometimes.
Never happens to me.
Oh, it does happen. Maybe I'm supposed to come back to that. So yeah, I'll come back to that. I know I was gonna make a point with that, but do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, well, when you were mentioning the trust and the remembrance, it brought me back to the story of my first encounter, my very first, well, cognitive encounter with Archangel Michael. And when I had that encounter, I was, releasing some of the old energetic cords, energetic bonds. And while I was in that session and I was doing that, I was suddenly like sucked into this black hole. But before I was sucked into that hole, I felt somebody, put his arms around me, and he just helped me. And I felt so safe. It was really this sense of, oh, I'm being sucked into something. And then something just started to grab me. And it was like, I gotcha. And that was just this sigh of relief. So I, started looking into that because I didn't know who that was. And I started asking, like, who was the one that was holding me? And I found out that it was Archangel Michael. And so last weekend, I had a visit from Michael, and he was just reminding me of that. Looking at information of, going through life, doing things by myself, never having anybody to help me, having the feeling of doing everything myself. And he was like, well, remember when that happened, who was the one catching you? Who was the one holding you? And letting me know that, of course, he's not the only one. There are so many more light beings that are here to guide us and assist us. But he just wanted me to remember what it was like. And like you were saying, Deanna, like, do you remember when that happened? Do you remember? Do you trust? And we're still human beings, right? We still have to have repetition or proof or whatever. And we need to be reminded all the time. And he was just saying, just remember what happened then. You were safe. You think we would ever let something like that suck you in a black hole? No. And yeah, sometimes we have to be reminded to just trust and keep trusting.
Yeah, absolutely. I know where I was going with all of that, and hopefully it fits beautifully into what's going to be next. But bridging the gap is what I was kind of wanting to draw out with that, because it's like we didn't create more polarity and division. We found a way to bridge the gap. And that's something that other people that follow me pretty regularly are starting to kind of pick up on, and even inbox me that they're kind of picking up on that I have this way of bridging the gaps. And I would also say, like, a bridging of the ages is happening now, and it's going to be crucial, I feel like, in the months and years to come, to be able to do that, because so many things are coming to the surface, it feels like, in stronger ways from both sides. You know what I mean? And I don't know, maybe it's just me that's kind of picking up on it, but it feels stronger from both sides. And kind of what I mean by that is like, you know, religion versus like the new age. You know, it's creating so much polarity and division from what I'm kind of seeing. And kind of my heart is, how do we bridge the gap? And
Right.
how do we come into complete oneness in the Father, you know?
Can I
What
just
is,
really quickly speak to that, Deanna?
yeah,
Because you're making a very crucial point where you're saying that in this, there's sort of this polarity and this division in New Age versus religion and whatever that is. And another part that I would like to address is basically what's going on in the world is there's this massive spiritual war where it's, you know, darkness against light. And, you know, if the light is arguing and being in that polarity, I'm like, come on, you know, we're here to be the light, we're here to be that power, we're here to be that example and invitation, and to just shine so the darkness can disappear. And that's what we came here to do. And then if we're in the part, you know, arguing like, you're doing, you know, you're doing it wrong, I'm doing it right, or whatever is going on, and this is the way to do it, and that's the way to do it. I mean, that's such a waste of time. And I'm sorry, I just wanted to speak to that because it feels like, and you're
yeah,
absolutely right, we should be in oneness,
yeah.
wherever you're coming from.
I've been guilty of it myself. And sometimes I catch myself still, you know, I'm fairly like a baby still at this point, you know, and I have to remind myself sometimes not to become like the thing that, what word would you want to say? I'm kind of thinking of a particular situation, you know, like when people come against you or whatever, and it just feels like they just keep coming against you. And it's like, if you're not careful, I found myself saying that I don't want to become like the thing that I don't like.
Right. Oh, that's
And
something that I
so,
wanted to address too, what you were saying right now. Because another thing that I see that is showing up for, not just for myself, but for many people, it's that part where the forces of, let's say, anti-consciousness are doing their best. You know, they're doing their best to distract us. They're doing their best to slow us down. They're doing their best to not let us shine our light. And it's becoming so obvious. And I don't know what you guys are seeing, but what you see around you. But I see a lot of anti-consciousness just being obnoxious and just trying to cause doubt and fear and upset and shame and whatever that is. It's so present. And this is the part where, when I look at where Deanna and I have this match, and I've learned different things that she's learned, from where I come from, we talk about these 24 distractor implants. And those distractor implants are anger, rage, fury, hate, blame, shame, regret, guilt, compulsive, obsessive, addictive, perverted points of view, love, sex, jealousy, peace, life, death, living, business, doubt, relationship, and fear. These are all thoughts, feelings, and emotions, implants, that are distracting us from our true power and potency. And I know these are, you know, quite a lot of words, quite a lot of emotions, the 24, and I can send them out so you guys know them all. But if you look at it, you know, whenever you see that anything causes doubt with yourself or with somebody else, it's like, hey, doubt, that's one of the distractor implants. That one is designed to keep us away from our true power and potency, from true love consciousness, from, you know, shining our light. If you look at somebody getting angry, if you see hate, if you see shame or doubt, or somebody being in a distractor, like being in business, or love is in there, not the unconditional love, but the conditional love that we know here on earth. And when you realize those are thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are designed to keep us away from our true power and potency, it makes it so much easier to step back and observe and look at it. It's like, oh, wow, this person is blaming me. That's interesting. They're in this distracting emotion. Wow. Wow, this person shows hate towards me. That's interesting. So this person is choosing to be in that lower frequency. When all you have to do is choose love frequency. That's all we have to do. But many times we get into upset, or somebody blames us and we blame ourselves. And the thing with these distracting implants is that if you're in one of them, you just go to all of them. You go from anger to hate, you go into fear, you go into doubt, you go into shame, you go into all of them. But it's very interesting to look at that, because just look around what happens in the world. Just look around at what happened, the past 2 years with COVID, with all the fear, with all of the doubt, with all of the guilt and blame and all those things. If you don't do this, it'll be your fault, this and this happens. You're not sure what's going to happen? Are you like, are you doubting? Are you still don't know what you're going to do? Or, people getting upset because, somebody wanted to follow the rules and the other one wanted to make their own decision, and people would get upset. These are ways that I would say the devil is just feeding everything to keep us in those lower frequencies.
Yeah,
as long as we're just aware.
right. Yeah, for me, it's interesting how much my perspectives are shifting and growing, like, very quickly. And it's like things that I maybe saw one way yesterday or last week, it's like changes, you know what I mean? And so, for me, like where I'm at right now, I'm learning how to navigate a new space. Sometimes I can't even find language, the right language for certain things. And the first, like, I've been finding myself saying the words like, like the word perspective, everything is about perspective, right? And so, in a lot of things, if I can find a different perspective to view things through, it's like I can see better opportunities in the situation or whatever. And kind of like what I've kind of been learning the last couple weeks, I think, is looking at, and you taught me this, Ruby, I think, it's like learning in every situation, what's right about this, and what is this reflecting back to me, and how can I use this as an opportunity to go higher and to raise my frequency or to overcome, or I don't really know. Everybody has kind of their terminology and their way that they describe things, and again, one is not right and one is not wrong. It's just, this is where individually we may be in our journey at this time. And where I was last week, I'm maybe not even there right now. And so, it's like, I guess just adding to what you were saying is, I kind of started to look into everything, and instead of like having this fear response or looking at it from like a negative perspective or whatever. And I try to help other people do this as well. So like you said, I have to take my own advice. And so learning how to do it myself has been interesting, like changing my perspective in how can I learn from this? How can is this just showing something inside of myself so that I can overcome and raise my frequency? I think that's what I was trying to bring out.
Did you raise your hand, Saloma?
Can I just speak for a wee bit?
Sure.
Yes.
I just agree with what you've been saying, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. what came to me also is in the last while, I'm learning that there is, as you mentioned, no right or wrong necessarily. And also, as you were saying, Deanna, what we believe right now can so easily change by the next week, day, whatever. And so it's such a blessing to not be so sure about things as I used to be. And Deanna, you had mentioned earlier about being in such a new space. That's what I'm finding too, that like, so I used to have, okay, I know that this is right and this is wrong. And so I try to live in that space, and to live in a space of freedom to go with the spirit is such a different space that the mind hardly knows how to respond to that. And so, yeah, it is definitely a different journey, but it's, and I also appreciate how Deanna mentioned about, or like, okay, so Ruby, you were talking about those negative blockers. And so I find too that if I, it's almost like I don't necessarily notice them so much or see it. It's almost like by now, my perspective, my desire is for my perspective to be in oneness, in love, and in unconditional love. And therefore, if somebody else is in heat or anger, it's to not respond, as I said, not to respond back in that same frequency, because then that will like bring them up to you as it were, like speaking to their greatness as we all are doing. And then that, brings them instead of joining them in where they're at right now.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, it'll bring you down in frequency as well. If you like, what you're actually doing is you match their level. If you give them the same response, that's what happens. And the beautiful thing with us being in unconditional love and being in that light, it's where, according to the laws of quantum physics, it's like a magnet. It's the law of quantum physics that if we're in that love frequency, it's like a magnet pulling the lower frequencies in, unless we decide to go down every time. If we decide to lower our frequency, if we decide to dim our light, if we decide to sometimes not love unconditionally, well, and we might not even be way down there, right? We'll just do a little step. But how much more powerful would it be if we're just there in this unconditional love and light and stay there and just be that light and be that power? It's gonna draw people in like a magnet. And I've been feeling that, a message for me was to be that message for many other people, because I see so many people that are still willing to dim their light, that are still willing to move down in frequency because of family, because of a partner, because of friends, because of a job, or whatever the reason is, that they still engage with that hate, with the blame, with the shame, and all of those stuff. And the only way for them to come up and join us in our party of light is to just have our party of light. And
Right. Yeah. I feel like one of the biggest struggles for me was like self-guilt and self-shame, and self-condemnation. And I could have projected that. I did actually project that. I used to.
I've never done it. Never.
I was like, well, they made me feel shame. They made me feel guilty. They made me feel condemned, which really they did. But also I kind of, allowed it. And I think kind of what I am sensing right now is like, for anyone that maybe listens to this later or whoever it's speaking to, is like, wherever you are, it's beautiful and it's okay. And it was meant to be a part of the journey to prepare and equip us for where we need to go. And it's kind of like, it's not a race. And I think a lot of times it was self-judgment on my part because I felt like I wanted to get to a certain destination or have this certain type of results by a certain time frame or whatever. And a lot of times it just didn't happen that way. And so it was just this pressure of performance. And it just didn't work. It just didn't flow because there was so much, I mean, pressure of performance and the shame, guilt, and condemnation. It really like, it feels like a constricting energy
It
in
is, yeah.
myself. It really felt that way. And so yeah, just wherever people are at right now, it's beautiful because also too, what I've kind of been getting is that so many things recently that I've been seeing, I feel like it's about trying to find ways to get out of something versus choosing to go through it. You know what I mean? And I used to do this too. Just because you're going through a hard time, just because you're walking through a valley or whatever, doesn't mean that it's not a part of what was supposed to be for your life.
Yeah.
It just means that that was a part of something that needed to develop and equip you for where you need to step next. And, you know, I have seen this several different times. People will find a way to short circuit something to go around, over, or under so they don't have to go through. And if they don't go through, then it's kind of like somehow they're not fully equipped then on the other side for what that next phase is for their life. I don't even really know, you know, why I'm sharing this right now, but I just really felt that was for someone, you know, to just release from yourself, like expectations. And just because things are hard right now, it doesn't mean that you're not exactly where you're supposed to be right now.
Exactly. And something that I would like to add to that, because when you're telling me this, it reminds me of something. When I was going through a hard time, I was going through this insane breakup, and a dear friend of mine, she asked me a question. It's kind of what we do when we facilitate each other. We ask each other questions, and like you asked one question earlier, Deanna, where you said, you know, what's right about this? What's right about this I'm not getting? What's the gift underneath? And then, so my friend was asking, have you chosen to have fun with it yet? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you know, you can also choose to have fun with it. You know, what's so funny about it? I'm not laughing about. And, you know, we take everything so seriously. And we came here on Earth to experience everything. That's the whole journey on this planet, where we get to experience everything. And we go through something, and of course it hurts. You know, there's pain, there's upset, there's a lot of things that are going on. And then she was like, have you chosen to have fun with it? I'm like, well, no. What would it take to have fun with it? And I would just look at it from that perspective. Well, what is so funny about this? What is funny about this that I'm not laughing about? What is right about this I'm not getting? What is right about me I'm not getting? And that opened up this space where I allowed myself to get the awareness what the gift was underneath all of the pain. And one message I got in that period was, go through the pain and you'll find love. And believe me, at that moment, I did not get it. What do you mean go through the pain and you'll find love? What are you talking about? But I mean, now I know. But yeah, just ask those questions. What will it take to have fun with it? Have I chosen to have fun with it? No. What will it take to have fun and to just enjoy this experience? And that's another part where, you know, there are no negative or positive energies. There's no right and wrong. We only say that some emotions are negative or, you know, they're hurtful because they don't feel good to us. But it's just an emotion. It's just energy. That's all it is. And we judge it as bad. And that's, when you judge something as bad, and at the same time, it's not ours to judge. It's just energy. There's no good or bad energy. So, yeah, I hope this helps.
Go ahead, Saloma.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak into that about people making us feel upset and people blaming
Mhm.
us or bringing stuff up. I see it by now also that if I get upset, it's the upsetness was in me. But the other person was used, if you will, by the Holy Spirit, if you will, to help me see what's inside of me.
Yes, beautiful.
It's not that they brought that upsetness, but they brought it to the surface. And
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
that's a hard pill to swallow many times.
No, true. And I actually, there's this lovely story that I read a while ago where I think there was this Asian man, maybe it was Buddhist, I don't remember the exact details of the story, but he decided to take his boat and go somewhere to meditate, just a quiet place. So he went there and he started to meditate in a very quiet place. And then suddenly another boat just bumped into his boat. And he got so upset because he was like, oh, don't you see that I'm meditating? And he was getting really angry with this man that was on the other boat. And he opened his eyes and the boat was empty. It was just a lost little boat that just, bumped into his boat. And he realized, okay, so this anger is inside of me because I was getting so angry with somebody that doesn't even exist.
Mhm.
So
That's so good.
yeah, and I love that you're sharing this, Saloma, because this story, and I loved it, and I've been using it for some other emotions that I had where I suddenly felt insecurity or whatever emotion comes up, and I suddenly realized, what is this? Where is this coming from? And I was thinking about this man that wanted to go meditating on the water, and yeah, getting angry over nothing. And we just make it up here. We have all these scenarios and conversations in our head, and we just go ahead and do it. And yeah, it's so much easier, yeah, if you have somebody across from you, because then you have somebody to blame, or you have somebody to, as a reason to, I'm probably upset because, you did this or that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not true. You're
Yes.
absolutely right. It's inside of us, and yeah, it's just being shown to
Yes.
release.
And it's almost like an easy way out, if you will, to blame.
Yes.
And yet that again is avoiding our own pain, avoiding our own stuff that just wants to be loved and healed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe one thing that I can share as well in this group, and maybe another time we could do an exercise. So yesterday, a friend of mine called me, and he has a 19-year-old son, and his 19-year-old son was very upset with him. And he called me while he was on his way to his son, and he said, I'm just gonna try to stop by, have some coffee with him, because I'm not angry with my son, but my son doesn't want to see me. He's being influenced by his mother, his uncle, and his son was really upset with his father. And he was actually, the day before, he said, I felt so much pain in my body, I wonder what's wrong with my body. So I started asking him questions like, what if it's not pain? What if it's the intensity? And if it's intensity, what is your body telling you? And so he became aware, it's like, this pain is telling me that this is the pain that is coming up, and not a physical pain, but pain in my heart. And I had to process the pain in my body. So he had already processed part of the pain. And when he came to his son's house, his son refused to see him. He didn't even want to open the door. He didn't even reply. So my friend left. And he called me, and yeah, he said it was as I had expected, but it still hurts. It really hurts. And he also knew that why he felt this pain in his body was just to prepare him for the heartache that he would feel. So we talked through it, and of course I I made him aware of the fact that his son knows that his father is in this higher frequency, and his son is just being pulled down by other frequencies. And for him to come up to the level where his father is, it makes him afraid. That's why he's reacting like this. And another part is, who do we react to the most? They're always the people that we know that will never let us down. He knows deep in his heart that his father will never abandon him. So he can shout and he can be mean to his father and he can do anything, because deep in his heart, he knows that he will never leave him. So that reassured him. But I gave him another exercise because he felt this pain was like a knife in his heart. And I told him, close your eyes and just ask this emotional pain to sit at the table with you. Maybe there's one emotion, maybe there are several emotions, but just treat him like an external consciousness. Just say, come sit with me, or come sit with me at the table. What do you require? If there are several emotions that you feel, just ask, what are you? Who are you? Because you could have pain, you can have upset, you can have grief, whatever it is. Just as many as show up, just invite them at the table, just have them at the dinner table of wherever you are, and just ask these emotions, what do you require? What can I give you that I haven't given you before? And just give it. Just give it to the emotion, because it's just a consciousness. And like I said, we judge it as bad because it doesn't feel good. But we don't have to judge it as bad. It's just a consciousness. It's not the consciousness fault that we judge it as bad. It's just, it's just energy, it's just an emotion. And so he did that right after our phone call, and he texted me back saying, well, this really helped, and thank you for that. And all he can do now, and all we can do now, is just hold the space for his son and wait for his son to be willing to make that choice.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I've learned how to be patient and give people space sometimes. It's like it's so much easier for us to see what other people need to work on than it is for us to see it for ourselves. You know what I mean? So
yes,
I've been kind of growing in that as well. It's just like learning how to love people where they are. And it seems to have better results,
yes,
to
it works.
preach what our expectations are, for someone else
Right.
in our life. And so, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. So how about we wrap this one up? I think this was a wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I hope everyone on the replay did as well, or will as well, or whenever they watch this. Any last remarks or things you want to share? Go ahead, Sloan.
Yeah, I just also agree that it was a very nice conversation, and I would just want to speak blessing over all the goddesses and queens of our own nation and that are in this chat. And you had mentioned earlier about the reason or whatever to make this chat, and what I recognize, I see that there's been some women expressing their hurts and their pains, where and in that chat the husbands will not necessarily see those comments, and it just felt as though it's a safe place for women to express themselves. So I feel it is a good thing to have it. And so I just bless everybody who is listening to this to just continue moving forward, taking
Thank
another
you.
step.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Any last remarks from you, Deanna?
I guess maybe for anyone that doesn't know about the story of Deborah, was it Queen Deborah? Like she rose up when I think there was like disorder in the land, right? It said that Deborah rose up as a mother of Israel. And so it's kind of like, this is our opportunity. I see this as our opportunity to like bring the highest frequency of order and light, you know, to every space around us. Like it's really our chance to take dominion and rule and reign according to God's original intent of everything in our space. And yeah, I'm just really excited for all the ones, the queens and goddesses that are going to be coming into the group, and that we're going to be connected to, and just learning about what they, you know, what their contribution is and what they're creating, and learn about their space and all of that. You know, I love learning about people's passions and purpose, and how I can, you know, contribute and create even a greater space and expansion. That's kind of what I enjoy doing, is just helping someone expand into greater.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, well, great. Thank you both for being here, and thanks everyone for being here and being the contribution, and see you next time.